words are truth. When she smiles at you, she'll say, save that angels don't lie.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Angels Don't Lie. I'm your host, Jeanne Street, right here on KBGB Radio. I hope you are all doing really well. And tonight's show, we are going to be talking all about connecting to self. We're going to talk a little bit about crystals and your chakras, because this month topic is all around divination tools and how you can feel and live your best life. And tonight's special guest is Lena LaChance, and Lena's here with me at the studio, and we're going to talk all about that connection to self, and we're going to take it into pretty deep conversation about when we lose that connection to self, and even going as far as wanting to hurt yourself or cause harm to yourself, whether that be through cutting or addiction or even suicide. Mm-hmm. Because all of those things have, the common thing of a disconnect. So Lena's here with me in the studio, like I said. So hi, Lena, how are you?
Hi there. So happy to be here again with you and to be, connecting, no pun intended, on this really important topic.
It really is.
Yes.
And so Lena and I, if you guys don't know, we work at my studio, which is at 346 Main in Woodbury, Connecticut. It's in Spirit Healing Studio. And Lena rents the front room, and she does spiritual counseling and energy sessions. And the one thing that we were talking about with clients and a connection in how we receive energy and how we help people when they're disconnected from themselves, when we see suicide or harming the body around somebody, what comes through for that? And it's interesting because coming from a licensed professional and then coming from, this angel girl here over here, this angel whisperer, they're seeing conversations.
That's it.
It's very interesting. We're finding those commonalities. So we have this private little study going on of, we're just talking back and forth about, what this means for our clients and how we can better equip them.
Right. And that's the thing. So Jeanne and I were kind of talking about this. This is a really passionate topic for us because in each of our work, it's all about helping people to connect to themselves and live their best. And whether I'm a licensed professional counselor, I've seen people over 13 years who are struggling with self-injury, with addictions, with suicidality. And of course, I want to be able to understand their motivations, understand what's bringing them to that point, and then also provide them with tools to help them through it. And then Jeanne's perspective is, again, such an enlightened and connected perspective in terms of spirituality too. And you can take action steps to feel better, but with that, it's also having faith. And when you're in those darkest moments, how do we tap into that faith?
Yeah, when you don't have any faith or when you're not even participating in your body. Mm-hmm. Before we came online, we were talking about, the range of clients. And I said, really, it's interesting to me over the past, 5 years of seeing clients professionally for me, of what I've seen in a row of when somebody comes in and they're disconnected from their body. And it's not even 8 times out of 10. It's 10 times out of 10 when I find somebody that's come into my office that is withdrawn, which means they're not in their body. They are causing harm in some way to themselves, whether it's physical, whether they have tried or attempted suicide, or they are self-sabotaging and there's an addictive behavior. 10 times out of 10, that person's an empath. Mm-hmm. 10 times out of 10, that person is that sensitive being who is feeling energy and not understanding. Mm-hmm. So there's a disconnect. They don't understand what's going on in their body. Mm-hmm. So we then broke it down. We were like, okay, there's really 3 main topics. First is the empath, right? Mm-hmm. Talk about that. The second one would be they don't actually want to cause harm to themselves.
Yes.
Or they don't want to actually die.
That's it.
Right? You've seen this with your clients.
I mean, that's always really the net takeaway. And it's so interesting because in training, like when I was in school, and I remember, professors saying, when people attempt suicide, they're not doing it because they actually want to die. majority of the time. There are a few cases where...
Let's keep that real.
Exactly. Right. There are cases where most of the time the person has made several attempts, and then eventually they get to the point of being successful. And the difficult and challenging part of that is that maybe along the way after those attempts, they weren't provided with, appropriate interventions, or they weren't open to receiving the help.
Right.
So that does happen, but majority of the time it's really a cry for help. And it's really the person's way of saying, I don't know what's happening here, and I need...
And that's our other topic, is that they don't know how to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know how to put it into words. Like, especially if it's a child, like, hey, I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know where this is coming from. I'm not in my body.
Mm-hmm.
They're not being able to explain. I'm flying. They can't put it to words.
Mm-hmm.
And this is frustrating. It's really frustrating when you can't put to words how you're feeling and where your emotions are. Or when you're feeling somebody else's emotions and they're so conflicted, it'll turn into like you're lying. And that is a lie. So then you self-sabotage even more. You start to feel even worse and worse and worse about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and that's, and I know you've talked a lot about this on the show, but being an empath, and what does that mean? And empathy is being able to feel others' feelings as your own. So walking in somebody else's shoes. So there are so many different kinds of intelligence, and one of those is being emotionally intelligent. And if we're not really aware and owning our emotions, and then if we take it another level and we're an empath and we're absorbing other people's emotions on top of our own, that's just like a mixed bag of over emotions that aren't being addressed.
And this isn't something new. I mean, there is a difference between empathy and being an empath.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy is being able to empathize with somebody who's in pain. It's like you can relate. You can relate to them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily feel it within your body. You might feel the energy of it, and it might bring you to tears. That's the sensitivity of it.
Mm-hmm.
But being the empath, and again, this is not new. This is what the angels show me. This has been, for as long as we have been here,
mm-hmm.
is that told, being able to feel the pain of another and also feel the love of the divine. It's really there. It's really meant as a tool to help us through life, not to harm us or separate us. But where we've gone as a society is we've moved away from that divine connection, and we've gone more to this earthbound connection, this, especially here in America, in our culture, what we do, we're really attached to outcome and our external world instead of our internal world, instead of our internal well-being,
mm-hmm.
which is our soul, mm-hmm. and are connected to our higher soul self.
Yes. And I think, just to kind of add to that a bit, a big piece of that is the pace of our lives too.
Yes.
And the faster we're moving and the faster we're racing and going, we're not creating that space to connect, whether that's with ourselves,
mm-hmm.
or with others. And that's a basic human need.
And so we'll break that down very simple. Mm-hmm. Cell phones. Here's the thing. We talk to people in broken language, in text. Mm-hmm. We talk to them on social media. We're not having direct conversations all the time. So you don't know, you're not having that interaction. You're not have that energetic tone, so you can separate it. You're having connections through a device, mm-hmm. which has its own energy, which has its own lower vibration, which, and it does actually takes the body down notches. It brings your vibration lower, lower, and lower. Mm-hmm. So we need to get outside.
Yes.
We need to go for the hike. We need to unplug. Mm-hmm. We need to have times when we're just purely by ourselves with another person having a conversation, mm-hmm. with no electronics near us.
That's it. I just 2 days ago read an article from Psychology Today, and it talked about the increase in depression, mm-hmm. in today's children and the timing of that. When did that start? When did we start to see that increase? And it was when smartphones were introduced. So there's a direct connection between that depressive mood and smartphone use.
And some schools are offering like morning yoga and morning meditation, and some classrooms are bringing meditation in there. And what they're finding that children perform better. They're more relaxed this way. They're not so uptight and so worried and so stressed out. So mindfulness is an amazing tool that we can all use, and it doesn't have to be complicated.
Right.
Right. So we'll slow down a little bit because mindfulness is its own big story. Mm-hmm. But today we want to talk a little bit about using crystals. We want to talk about opening our chakras and how this can help us feel empowered. How can it give us a sense of safety?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because most times when somebody comes in that desperate state, and we both have gone back and forth talking about this, and we've underlined they don't feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a teenage girl that's sitting across from me, mm-hmm. whether it's a mother who's exhausted and depleted, or a father who has lost his job and is trying to keep their family together, or this man who has this connection to spirit but is denying it because he's being judged by the outside world and he doesn't know what to do with that. I mean, mm-hmm. You don't feel safe in your own tone. You don't feel safe to say, who am I?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So how are we going to learn to be safe? And that's what we both want to share with you tonight. We want to share, how can you feel safe in your life? How can you help your children to feel safe in their life? Mm-hmm. And the other thing I think is fascinating that we uncovered about this connection is it really does not matter. I mean, it does matter. Let me back that up. A lot of times people won't feel safe because they're not connected to their self.
Mm-hmm.
They've had trauma.
Yes.
They've had abuse in their life. And they also might be that empath. But mm-hmm. you can see a child, you can see someone that's in this state who may have a loving, supportive home, who may have the opposite of that, and they still have that same pain, and it's identical to the one that was abused.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel it so deeply, but they weren't abused.
Right.
They were showered with love.
Right.
I find that so interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that speaks to the flow of energy too.
Yeah, it speaks to the flow of, where's the divine in our life? Mm-hmm. Where does that person, where does spirituality, where does that time alone, where does love present itself in their life? Because the only difference between the person that has been affected by trauma and the person that has no trauma is
still unsettled.
Still unsettled.
Yeah.
Both of them need love. Mm-hmm. Both of them require healing and love, the same amount.
Yes. And that's that basic human need of like needing love and needing connection. And it reminds me in my meditation group this past week, I'll pull, talking about using divination tools. So I'll pull cards and use that as kind of setting the intention, or also as the message, to the channeled message for the group and what they need. Mm-hmm. And 2 cards were pulled, and they both had a message around what it means to thrive and the importance of thriving in our lives. And most of the time we're living in that survival place. And when you're just surviving, you're not giving yourself the opportunity to really feel.
Right.
And the feelings aren't always going to be good feelings. That's not realistic.
And when you're in that survival mode, you also have that adrenaline.
That's it.
You have that like rush, and there's not settling it. So there's no calm. Mm-hmm. So you're like running and going and got to get it done. And there's no, I'm safe. I'm okay.
Exactly. And being able to kind of settle into that. And the 2 things like that came, one of the pieces that came out of those 2 cards was breathe. Mm-hmm. Breathe. Which we can all access.
Which is a meditation in itself.
There you go. And appreciate.
Gratitude.
That's it.
Love that. Because, gratitude will change your attitude.
And I think when you're in a dark space and you feel like there isn't a way out, to bring yourself back, knowing you do have the choice, you do have the control of looking for something in that moment to appreciate.
Let's give our listeners some tools to work with, that if you may be in that dark place, or if you know someone that is in that space of not feeling joy, not experiencing love, and not feeling safe, some things that they can do. Mm-hmm. We were talking about how crystals can be amazing. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if they heard it, but let's talk about the sunshine. We're having that sunlight on your face. Mm-hmm. You want to go?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, the idea of, if we're looking to get into a practice of appreciating and gratitude, and we're in a space where we are maybe feeling really dark or down and can't really find things that are personal at this moment that we're grateful for, then it could be something as simple as just sitting outside and feeling the sun on your face. Mm. And the reminder that every day is a new day, the sun will shine again.
Right.
And being in that moment, being in your body, and just appreciating that even though it may be hard, feel hard, sometimes feel hopeless, that I have this in this moment.
Which is so beautiful. And I recently had Louie and Cooper on the show, and we talked about grief, because this family has been through an immense amount of grief. Louie has, gone through breast cancer, and then their son passed away. Mm-hmm. So their son Cooper then, he lost his brother Joey, and then he had to experience grief as a 7-year-old, and he had to go through, this process of healing, and he didn't want help. No matter what Luann would do for him and try to help him, he would fight her every step of the way because he was in so much immense pain. Mm-hmm. So I was asking him, what the turning point was, and he said, he just realized the grief wasn't him. Mm. And he had, experienced, he was able to experience what it was like with other kids that had also lost loved ones, that it didn't really define him. And so that he was safe.
Yes.
He was safe again. And I thought it was amazing. I thought it was, here's this family that's had so much pain and brokenness, and they're surviving and striving. They're moving forward and helping other people. Why can't we do that? Why can't everyone find joy? Mm-hmm. But we can't always. So,
well, and I think that some important pieces of that, and that's beautiful that you shared that, is he connected, you said, with other people, yes, other kids who were going through a similar process or a loss.
Yes.
Right. So again, connection is key. If we disconnect from self and others, that's a red flag sign. We need to get back to our basic human need.
So how do you do that when you are feeling isolated and alone? Or if you're a parent and you're trying to help your child, you're trying to get them help, you're bringing them to this place. I mean, I've had parents bring their children in for sessions, and, it can go one of two ways. It's either going to be like, holy goodness, this is amazing. I've got the angel connection. They can see it, they can feel it, and their life changes and they're amazing. Or they're going to manipulate the situation and they're not going to say a word. They're going to be closed off, their head's going to be down, their body's going to be tight, and they're not going to want to participate. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, because they'll be bucking the parent, they don't want to be told what to do. Mm-hmm. And I can understand that.
Yes.
Because as a stubborn teenager, you don't want to listen to your parents. You want to confide in your people you feel like are your friends. Right. And if your friends are in this lower vibration and you're continuing, how do we break that cycle?
How do you break it? Yeah. And that's such an important question. And there really is no one size fits all answer to that.
So how do we teach empowerment?
That's it. So to me, when I'm presented with that, it all tells a story to me. And I know the same for you. When you see that, what is this person telling me? This person is telling me they don't feel safe. Mm-hmm. They don't feel open and vulnerable enough to open up themselves for themselves to help themselves at this point in time.
Right.
So when we're dealing with children, that's where I feel like it's important for the parents to get the support through that. And when you're taking care of yourself as the parent, you're going to be learning tools to help yourself through it, which will automatically trickle down to your child.
So let's talk about that number one tool. The number one tool, this is what the angels show me, is self-love. Because with self-love comes that respect. Not only respect for yourself, but then you teach other people how to respect you. And when we're not respecting ourselves is when we get to that dark place, that separation from love. When we get to that, I don't belong anywhere, or I'm not comfortable here, or nobody understands me here. So that is a learned behavior, whether it's in the home, whether it's at school, through friends, that's a learned behavior. When you don't feel safe and confident within, you tend to look outward for help. So, and you can keep going outward, but it will never bring you peace. It will never bring you joy. You can try the next best class, the next best, type of therapy. You can go to as many healing sessions as you want, but until you take ownership and you start to self-love and you start to say, okay, I'm worthy. All right, it's not up to somebody to fix me. It's up to me to start to respect myself and honor my body, honor my being, honor my place here in this family. Then it starts to make sense.
And I think just also talking a little bit more about the idea of needing to be fixed.
Right.
This is a huge theme with, I think, with the people that we're working with and supporting, and just giving that reminder to everybody, there is nothing to fix. We are not broken.
So this is what the angels say. We're all here on this journey. We are meant to have these lessons that can either propel us or they can keep us staying the same. So your pain can propel you into your future. So even if you're depressed and you're anxious and you're, thoughts of hurting yourself, you can use that pain to tell a story. And people do it all the time. They do it in songs, they do it in poetry, and they inspire other people.
Yes.
They spark. Actors can do that. So painting can do that. Art, it's just amazing what we can do with our pain, how it can transform. I mean, people that run foundations that are raising money for all over the world, you can take your pain and it can actually mean something, or it can stay the same and grow until it's like a darkness.
Well, and that's like what Cooper was saying too, when he said, like, this isn't me. The pain, it becomes a choice. Is the pain going to define me? And is that going to be the rest of my life and my story? Or how can I use that pain and turn it into a purpose?
Right.
How can I look at that pain? Because Jeanne and I are sitting across from each other right now. I know looking at her and she looking at me, we've had pain. We've lived through pain. Deciding that pain is going to teach you. This is where the faith comes in.
It so does.
And it's not
easy. It's not easy, but, and it sounds easy. It sounds, okay, faith, whatever, I get people rolling their eyes. They're like, oh, okay, love can heal, whatever, Jeanne, but the value of a prayer is far more worthy and valuable than any bank account. The merit of it, what it can do for your life, how it can transform is miraculous.
Yeah.
So when we are able to really increase our faith, we can see that those are stepping stones to where we need to go. So we talk a little bit about the energy centers, and the reason I want to bring this up is when we have disconnect from source, and we all do. We're human. We're gonna not be connected at all times. Then we will feel it. It'll show up in our life as drama. It'll show up in our life as chaos. It'll show up in our life as I can't get ahead and I'm unlovable. It will show up as I'm unworthy. I'm not talented. I have no gifts. It can show up in so many ways. So when we start to work with our energy centers, and they're called chakras in some places, just energy centers in others. But when we start to work with them and open them, and we start to say, all right, divine, work through me. All right, divine, heal me, help me. All of a sudden, we've given permission for love to come in. So remember, we've come here and we have free will. So God can't interfere with us because we've come here to have a journey and have the pain and heal it. And He wants us to experience it so we can move closer and we can move through things to get on the other side. So that's what we've chosen. So when we say, all right, the flag's up, I need a little help, in comes all this beautiful energy. All of a sudden, knock at the door. Here you are. Here's this new person that's entering your life. And this is the love of your life. You had no idea. You prayed, and so therefore it comes. But you have to participate in that. We can't beg for it. Begging is not the same as prayer.
Right, exactly.
Winning the lottery, we have to be realistic here. But when we pray for it and we say, all right, God, I'm ready for that. I'm ready for that abundance. I'm ready for it. God said, okay, here's what you can handle. Here's what you can have right now. God will give you what you can handle. If you can handle more, He's going to give you more. If you can't handle it, then it's not your time yet. So you better clean up your act.
And what it's reminding me too is, and I think you said it earlier, is like surrendering.
Oh, so hard, right?
So knowing when you're maybe in that low space and that low energy, that is just a moment in time. And also to be able to surrender and just say, I give this over to you.
I don't know if you ever read the book Eat, Pray, Love.
Yes, of
course. I love it. One of my favorites. But I love the movie, and I loved it. I know it's very different, but I love the scene where Julia Roberts is in, she's playing Elizabeth Gilbert. So she's in the bathroom, and she doesn't know what she wants. Her marriage doesn't feel comfortable. She's laying in bed. She doesn't feel authentic. And so she's on her hands and knees. And this is a moment of surrender. She's like, and she's admitting, like, I'm sorry I haven't talked to you. Thank you for the ample blessings, but now it's real because it's true. God knows. You can't just be like, hey, but that's the perfect picture of surrender, right?
That's it.
When we're on our knees, when we're saying, okay, I can't do it. I can't do it without you.
That's it.
And then we sometimes forget and we still try to do it ourselves.
And that's where, to Jeannie's point, it is up to us to make the choice. It's also important to know and honor your limitations and recognize that sometimes you do need support during that time.
Yes.
Right.
So how do we get that help?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Meditation is a great way to, start to support our body. Some people have a really disconnect. They think it's too hard, but it's pretty simple. We're just going to breathe in through our nose, holding it in for the count of 5 and exhaling it out of the mouth. It's simple. 5 minutes in your body, nice and calm. Listening to some music, right? Studying those energy centers like I talked about. I have a new video that's coming out. You guys can listen to it. It's on YouTube. Talks about the chakras, where they're located. And you can learn so much about yourself by, delving into that. Using the crystals, having a crystal like an amethyst by you or a rose quartz, because they're healing stones to help you to raise your vibration. Using angelite stone, which is such a beautiful spiritual connection, or celestite, which helps us connect to the higher beings, helps us connect to source. Beautiful stones that will help move that energy through our energy centers, raising our vibration. Perfect.
And just with the energy centers and the chakra work and the sessions that we do with our people, when we're able to kind of remind them, well, this energy center represents these emotions. And then I love when I see the light bulb moment from them.
Yes.
Where they're like, wow.
Right.
So what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling is translating in my body.
Right.
That right there is a connection.
Right.
And it helps to validate Because if you can't explain it all the time, you're just feeling it and you don't understand it, there's no context, that can be a disconnect. But to be able to connect it in your body and with the meaning of it is, I think, really helpful.
I love that you use the word validate, because I think that's another important part, because we all want to be validated. But our feelings and our emotions are two different things, right? The emotion is connected to a past memory, right? So we have an emotional state, and the feelings can arise sometimes from that, and sometimes they can arise from ego. So they can be very tricky. So there can be a false sense of truth. So when we start to work with that and we start to uncover, say, in the root, which is, our balance, our stability, it's also our fight and flight. It's why we become unbalanced in our life and why we have such chaos. So we can be very emotional about that. We can be like, well, I didn't feel loved early on. Well, that makes sense, because it's the beginning of how you developed, right? So that's off balance. So now we're going to learn self-love. Right. So we're going to learn a new stability to feel safe. So working with that one energy center, we can let go of any stories that you replay and just go to that tone and feel stable and safe within you.
Yes. Transformative.
Right.
Yep. That's beautiful.
Bang.
I know, right there.
Right.
Yeah.
So working with a healer is another great tool. So if you are a self-learner, I would suggest you go on, study the chakras, learn about some crystals, research. You can go onto my website. You can go to Goddess University. We have lots of free resources for you as well. You can check out my YouTube channels, because I have lots of videos on this type of work as well. So we have resources. If you're somebody that needs somebody to help you, if you need a little guidance, finding a healer. And I always say this, make sure that they're God-based. Get some references before you go out and have anybody work with your energy, because this is big stuff, guys. This is, your energy, and it's important that you are in good hands.
That's it.
Yeah. Listening to music, doing some type of art, like using your hands, whether you're going to cook or cleaning, or you're going to go for a hike. When we start to move energy and we start to express it, you start writing. If your music starts singing, well, all of a sudden that creativity is going to spark, and you can move that pain. You can get those tones out of you so they don't stay in.
Exactly. Don't stay stuck.
Yeah. Go outside, and if you need to yell, yell. I love putting on a loud song and singing that loud. Sometimes it's got to be like a rock song. And it's
yeah, felt it out.
Yeah,
sure.
It feels so good, right?
Yeah, completely. Music is, for me, what a big motivator.
Yes.
Or if I'm feeling down, I'll listen to some sad songs to just release those feelings and to be able to let that flow and move through
You're validating yourself. Right. You're allowing yourself a moment. Sometimes we need a moment to get real with ourselves, and then we can say, all right, Jeannie, you're being a little silly. Let's let that go. But if you're not real with yourself and you're always so serious and you're thinking in the negative, well, that's what's going to keep coming. So we want to change those patterns. So, claiming responsibility, taking ownership, healing, being ready to participate is so important.
It's so important. It's everything. With that said, though, I want to also be mindful about if you are a child, if you're a child and you're in a home that is dysfunctional or abusive, I think it's important to also know that there are resources for you.
Yes.
You may feel like you can't share or trust, or however, change only happens when we change. And I believe that our parents and our parents' parents and all of the ancestors, they've done the best that they can with what they're working with. And sometimes it takes the child to be the teacher.
Yes.
And I'm saying that because I feel like maybe if you're feeling stuck as a child, and, I had a client recently who is an adult now, but as a teenage girl was in an abusive home and felt stuck and didn't know who to turn to. And so she turned to attempting suicide. And she said, I did not want to die. I did not want to kill myself. I just wanted people to listen to me. And so I encourage anyone out there, whether child or not, if you are feeling that way, knowing you have the choice to reach out to other people. So as a child, you can reach out to a school counselor. You can reach out to a family friend who's a trusted adult. You can reach out to a clergy member, a doctor when you go for an appointment. There are other people you can reach out to.
Yes.
And let them know what you need and where you're at so that people can provide you with that support.
Right.
And change will happen, and maybe and hopefully it will be for the better for the adults in this case who are involved too.
Right.
And it will be a wake-up call. Right? So
yeah, it's interesting. This is one of the reasons why I did foster care, because I wanted to give parents a second chance. Of course, for me, it was all about like the children and like protecting them and the angels. I kept having dreams of babies' faces, and like I knew that I needed to do this. So, and I wanted people to have that opportunity to get well, because we all make mistakes. We're human, right? So the angels have shown me like we're here in the same playing field, right? Everybody's equal. There's nobody above and nobody below, even though we think, oh, well, they're successful, or they have money, or, they're famous. We think it's untouchable. We'll never get that. But their pain, their life, their connection to soul, it's all the same, right? You're just seeing an outward picture.
Right.
Just because somebody has things doesn't mean they're happy inside. And we've seen this with, a few famous suicides lately, which has rocked people's worlds. They really have they don't understand it, but pain is pain.
Well, and it also connects to, these people may be famous, successful in business or in their work. They may have money. And what is it that they're missing?
Right.
And it goes back to that connection.
Feeling safe and feeling loved.
Right.
So the one thing that we can do for somebody in our family is that we can be the love for ourselves first.
Right.
So if you're that child and you're in pain, if you learn to love yourself first, that means the best that you can in the situation that you have. By loving yourself, if you are able to speak to somebody in authority, somebody that's, older and has that safety factor for you, that's a beautiful thing. If you can start to see yourself in the eyes of God and seeing your abuser in that eyes of God, knowing that their pain, for the reason they're doing it is because they're in pain. So praying for them, releasing them from your energy is really important as well.
Right. And that can be a process and completely, though, attainable.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that is really the ultimate freedom.
Yeah. And, I shared in one of our shows, we were talking about, the aftermath of suicide, what happens to the souls when they go to the other side, but what happens to the families that are left to pick up the pieces of that painful departure, and people that are in pain, they're not necessarily thinking of how other people are going to feel. And it's not because they're selfish. It's not because they're, unworthy of love. It's because they don't feel worthy of love. It's because they feel like less than everyone else. So we can start to, really shower love on other people. And on the other side, our loved ones come through and they say the same thing, like love is the number one thing, because in heaven, there is the absence of fear, the absence of judgment, the absence of time. So there's no constraints there. There's no separation. We're here on earth. We do have separation, and that's part of our journey. That's why we've come here, to experience that. So how do we work with it instead of work against it?
Right.
How do we have it be for us instead of against us? We start to heal the fear. We heal the judgment. We start taking the time to love, and we let go of the constraints that we put around ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
Or the expectations.
Yeah. And it reminds me, in the work that I do, when I have to share with a parent, your child is feeling this way or your child is saying this, a lot of times the initial response will be, oh, they're just trying to get attention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important to kind of sit with and recognize, yeah, they are.
Right.
They are.
And where do we go from onto the compassion side of that?
That's it.
Especially if the child is manipulating, let's talk about that empath, really quick, and you guys can get more information on my website, tons of it about being an empath. But an empath is the ability to feel other people's pains and energy. They can also kind of control energy in terms of how they manipulate people. So if the child is really manipulating, or it's an adult, taking that energy and making it their own, they can really quickly turn into a narcissist. Mm-hmm. They can really quickly, start to cause pain and, misdirect that energy in a negative tone, mm-hmm. use their gifts in a negative way. Mm-hmm. And how do you help that person?
Right. How do you separate too from that is the question.
Yeah.
And be able to step into that loving space instead of that defensive.
Right. And that manipulator will make you feel responsible for their pain. They'll make you feel like you haven't done what you needed to do.
Right.
Again, let's get right back to what is the cure for that.
That's it.
Self-love.
Mm-hmm.
You have to love yourself. You have to separate. You have to take care of you first. You have to respect you and know that you can say no to that person, mm-hmm. even if they're a child. You can love them mm-hmm. and parent them in a different way. So when you start to take that responsibility on and self-love, you start to separate from that manipulation. Mm-hmm. It's not as easy as it sounds, but it definitely can be done.
It's attainable. And
yes.
I think a big piece of that too is understanding who you are.
Right. So working with somebody like Lena, in a counseling session, working with somebody like me in, an angelic healing session, mm-hmm. getting to the bottom and knowing where you have those tools and how to move through your life and how to move through the situation on the highest vibration is so important and so amazing, because what we've seen with clients on the other side is life-changing. Mm-hmm. It's really amazing.
Mm-hmm. It's inspiring. And
yes.
again, the gift of being able to support people even through their darkest times and remind them you aren't alone here.
Right.
And you can do this.
Right.
And then you do it. Then when they end up being able to take the tools and then use them for themselves and make it their norm, their reality, and then they're living in that light.
Right.
Genuinely is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. So with the empaths that I've seen, and like I said, it's usually 10 out of 10, you have these people, tried suicide, thought about it, heavy addictions. They'll come through and they'll be talking about, I didn't want to die. I don't want to die. And they don't feel safe in their body. That's like the number one word that they get to, in a roundabout way. Mm-hmm. That's where we always end up.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So getting them to that safe zone, getting them to feel self-love is attainable, but we can't force it. So first it has to come from within. The parent has to self-love, because we teach each other, right?
Through doing.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling with a teenager or child that's pulling away, just by self-loving and respecting yourself, you're going to teach them. And if you're the child and your parents, maybe your parent's an alcoholic. I've had this as well. And you're struggling with addiction, but you want to be sober because you know this is not yours. You know that you're picking it up from the parent and you want to be the spiritual being. Do your meditation, do your yoga, mm-hmm. self-love. And you know what? Your light will help heal them. But your control or your thinking you're going to fix them is never going to be the tool.
Right. You always have to go back to yourself and healing yourself.
And that sensitive soul, that person, that's the empath, they always want to help. They're the helpers. They want to help heal the world. They want to heal their friends. They want to help them. That's what their goal is. They just can't, they don't even know why.
Right.
They just want to, they'd be like, I would help you. And, and people don't want that help necessarily.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Help yourself first. Be really stable.
That's it.
And then God will open the doors of the people that you really need to help, where your light is really needed. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful.
Yes.
And it was just one. That was really great.
Oh, that's so great. I love it.
Anyway, so Lena and I are going to let you guys go. We're like, this is a great conversation.
We're, and hoping that you've taken something from it. Feel free to share out with us.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. You can find Lena on social media. Give them your handles.
Facebook, Lena LaChance. And yeah, you can visit my website, lenalachance.com. And I provide individual counseling work, intuitive energy, healing work, meditation groups, and I'm going to be running a mother-daughters retreat.
Oh, I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, in October, and it really is all around connection and communication for moms who are maybe struggling with having that kind of relationship with their daughters.
And I'm also going to throw out that Lena also does hypnobirthing, and she takes private clients as well, because she always seems to leave that one out. And I think that's one of the most incredible experiences. From what I've heard, I didn't get to experience it, but people on the other side of it are always like, there's nothing like it. So
hypnobirthing, yeah, it's amazing. And talk about connecting with yourself and connecting with your baby, and really starting from such a healed space before making that huge transition in your life. Yeah. So that's another passion that I have, and I'd love to share that out. If anyone's interested in that, please reach out.
Beautiful.
Yes.
And you can find me on jeanniestreet.com, Instagram, Jeannie Street Medium, and Facebook. You guys know where to find me. Join our Angels Don't Lie group. We'd love to have you in there. You can check all the new classes on In Spirit Healing Studio. We have lots of great things coming up for the fall. We're pretty psyched about it. Mm-hmm. Well, I thank you all for tuning in and listening. And I hope you remember that you are the light, you are bright, and you are the love. And I know what I know, because angels don't lie. Have a great night, everybody. God bless.
The cross on her arm is a truth. When she smiles at you, she'll say,